All right, I started a moment early, so I'll give it a couple of minutes to come back. I don't have anything like specific I was going to talk about. What I do almost every week is just look at like what you guys are talking about in the group. But there was a post about lying, so I want to go back and find that because one of my favorite behavior plans that I ever wrote was for the behavior of truth telling because lying was a problem behavior. And it's like it is such a beast if it's going to be in a behavior plan. Sorry, I'm just scrolling to try to find the lying post. LBA, Abels, lying as a behavior. Is it okay to address? So it was Courtney Henderson. Hi, Courtney. I don't know if you'll ever see this. Um, but I've had people ask me about lying as a behavior and how do you reduce lying and all of that stuff. Um, so I'm going to start with, I guess, yes, it's okay to address if you can define it. But like, why do we define behaviors? Or maybe I should wait 1 minute because we haven't officially started yet. However, it is ABA happy hour, so also happening in 1 minute because my Apple Watch doesn't tell me how many seconds are left. That's 5. Happy hour starts, so cheers, everyone. Okay, so we're going to talk about the behavior of lying and also Gypsy Rose, so stay tuned. Probably for about half an hour, unless anyone joins the chat or the event on video or something, and we end up having a fascinating conversation. Either way. So, lying. I had this client in upstate New York, and he was a teenager. He was not intellectually or developmentally disabled. Most of my clients haven't been. For about 10 years, I did like dual diagnosis. But anyway, he had like ODD and ADHD, one of those kinds of things. He was, I think I already said, like 15 or 16-year-old boy. And he was being really aggressive to his brother, like causing hospitalization type things. Like they never called me in unless like everything else failed. So like he was also spending thousands and thousands of his mother's money on like, you know, in games on like apps like the Simpsons game. Like you can buy stuff inside the game app, but like it's imaginary things. You're not actually buying anything. You can buy coins to like speed up the process of building an imaginary house. He was spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars buying imaginary things in the app store. And he would lie about it constantly. And like he was physically aggressive, but it was usually a conflict that came up because he got caught lying and he was lying all the time. And for mom, it was really, really important that we address this behavior of lying. And I wasn't a newbie CBA, but like I was board certified in 2008. This was probably like 2011. So like I was newish. I only had like 3 or 4 years of experience. So I was like, how am I going to write an operant definition for lying, right? And one of the reasons we write definitions is so we can tell whether or not a thing has happened or the thing hasn't happened. And then we record, yes, it happened or no, it didn't, right? That's observable, it's measurable. And lying is a thing that we say out loud. So you would think, since it's verbal behavior and it's not covert, that it would be easy to measure and define. However, we define things so we can tell whether they happened or not. Part 1. Part 2, lies, you don't always realize are lies while they're happening. So you could reinforce something you thought was a truth-telling statement and find out a month later it was actually a lie and have reinforced a bunch of lies instead of a bunch of true things. And then you've created all kinds of other problems for yourself. I don't know why my shirt's weird. So, what did I do? A few years before that, I ran into Murray Sidman's correspondence training because I just went like in a Murray Sidman rabbit hole and it was wonderful. And I was reading about say, do, and do say correspondence training, which was meant to train for compliance. We don't do compliance training anymore, obviously. We're not like pure compliance. We might like do a program how to follow instructions from the teacher, but not like comply with any adult. Anyway, so say, do, and do say correspondence training. Say, do is you say you're going to clap and then you physically clap. You say clap and then do clap. Is say do say I clapped. You just do the thing and then you say the thing you did. So this was initially set up so that if someone said they were going to get up and go brush their teeth, they would get up and go brush their teeth. And it actually worked really well. It's not bad for compliance training, which, like, never use that phrase. I used it accidentally because I'm old, but like, we don't do compliance training anymore. But it is good for little things, like for a 5-year-old, like, are you going to go brush your teeth? And they're like, yeah, I'm going to brush my teeth. And they like immediately go to like their Nintendo Switch. It was meant for things like that. And for that, it works really well. So in my head, I was like, you know, if I do compliance training, that kind of reinforces truth telling behavior. And if he does the thing, we watch him do the thing, and then he says the thing that he's doing or had just done, and then reinforce it, he will tell the truth accidentally, and we can reinforce a definitely true statement that's tied with a behavior and know that it happened and it wasn't a lie at the time. Tricky part 2, working with teenagers, is this teenage boy and his mother did not get along, and mother was the primary caregiver, had to run the plan, all of this stuff. So she goes, how am I going to reinforce him? I don't know what to do. He like throws stuff at me if I talk to him and this, that, and the other. So I'm observing and I'm like, wow, like he just wants her gone in any situation. But like, that's teenagers, right? Like, they don't want their parents around, and like, you don't know anything and they're embarrassed to be seen with you. So I came up with an intervention where she would walk up to him while he was doing something that she could see him doing, say, are you, I don't know, playing The Sims, right? And she would have to ask that 3 times until he said, yes, I'm playing The Sims, or a full sentence, so that it was like actual truth-telling correspondence behavior. So she would say, like, are you playing The Sims? And stand within 5 feet of him, because he wanted like as much space as humanly possible from her. And as soon as he said, yeah, I'm playing The Sims, yes, I'm doing The Sims, yes, I'm playing The Sims, any version of that, negative reinforcement was the reinforcement of her just like leaving, saying like, okay, and taking off, because that was the only reinforcement to a teenager at that exact time in that house that mom had available that wasn't thousands of dollars that he shouldn't have been spending, right? So this is why truth telling and lying, like lying is an okay behavior to target, it's just very hard to do. So even with that client, I never collected data on how many times he lied in a day or a week or a month, because how do you know, right? Like, you can't tell if someone's lying in the moment, especially if they're good at lying. Like, little kids are bad at lying. You might be able to tell in the moment, but still not. So yeah, like, I wouldn't put lying as a behavior in a behavior plan, because your data is going to be kind of off, because you are not going to know every time it happened, at least if you're in a situation with like a typically developing person who has like regular language skills and all of that. So the best I was ever able to come up with, and this is just me, I was actually pretty proud of that. That's probably one of my favorite interventions, where I was like, wow, I was really clever on that. And it worked. It worked really well. It was beautiful. It's one of my proudest things, because it was really hard and I like spent so many hours trying to figure out how to help this kid. But I did. So yeah, the best you can do is not collect how many times they lied, because you're not going to be able to tell every time. So it's kind of useless data. And you can accidentally reinforce lies if you're trying to verify whether something is a lie or not in the moment, if it's a spoken statement or a vocal verbal statement. So track truth telling. And I just did like, they were in the same response class, right? Like lying and physical aggression. So I thought, as truth telling goes up, physical aggression should go down. They're both escape maintained and should yoke kind of like that. And they did. So that was like my tangential data that I used. And it was really, really cool. So if someone's lying, teach them to tell the truth, reinforce that, but don't collect data on the behavior of lying unless you can think of another way to do it. And if you can, please share like in the comments or post a video or link to a journal article. I would be fascinated to read it, because I don't know about that. But that's why lying is kind of hard to tease out, because you can't definitely for sure telling it's happening. So yeah, that would be my advice on lying. All right, Gypsy Rose and a podcast. So I will post this as soon as I end the live. I recorded so I work at a university and I have friends that work there. This is not like a part of the university, but like I have professor friends. So me and 4 of my professor friends recorded a podcast. We're going to do one a month about like some true crime episode. We have a forensic psychologist. We have a me, so we have the ABA viewpoint on things. We have a social psychologist and someone that is kind of ABA, but also a neuropsychologist, Dr. Baxi. She's awesome. And then we also have a professor of like cinematography that kind of jumps in now and then. It's a cool thing. It's called Talking Mindlessly, and this episode is talking mindlessly about Gypsy Rose. And from a behavior analytics standpoint, I kind of talk about Gypsy Rose and like how her rule-governed behavior might develop, and also a little bit about borderline personality disorder, because that's one of my biggest areas of expertise that's pretty niche. And there's actually some papers and some psychologists, I guess, but research psychologists. This isn't a widely held belief, but like this is a thing that some people that specialize in borderline personality disorder do believe, is that Munchausen by proxy, which is now called imposition imposed on another person or something like that. The name of it changed in the DSM, but yeah. So imposition opposed on, that can't be right, but it's something like that. It's in the podcast, the new name for it. I just keep forgetting it. I'm very sorry. But there's some people that think that 100% of people with what I'm just going to say is Munchausen's by proxy, because I can't remember the name of the other thing right now, have borderline personality disorder, and that it is a frantic attempt to prevent real or imagined abandonment, because you especially can't get abandoned if someone is very sick, which was not my idea, but like I've read a lot about BPD and all of that literature. So if you have borderline personality disorder, then you know it's not always abandonment in romantic relationships. That's how we hear about it, but it's like abandonment in general. So I kind of talked a little bit about why that would be difficult for her, and then we talked about her mom Dee Dee. So we have some behavior analytic discussion in there of antisocial personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, histrionic we touched on. I tend not to talk about that one at all because it's a little I don't know. I'm not sure histrionic is going to stay in the DSM. Like it's only ever diagnosed in women. It's a arguably sexist diagnosis in there. But anyway, that's what we're talking about with Gypsy Rose. In the podcast. It's really fun. It's the first episode, so it's not like ultra polished. I'm very sorry about that. But I'll post it so that you can see if you like it. And I just uploaded it, but it should be on Apple Music and all of that stuff within 24 hours, I think. So that is that. We talked about our lying behavior. That client was so difficult. But yeah, and also the negative reinforcement of mom to a teenage boy, like I used that multiple times after that, but like it was rough. It was rough. Like it was really rocky, I have to say. And I was working with Dr. Rohn up in Syracuse, and it was so cool. So he sent me all these interesting cases. There was another case I went up there, and this client was gouging out his eyes, or trying to gouge out his eyes. He didn't do it successfully, but it was bad enough where he had the mask. Like he had a martial arts mask on his face, but it has like the metal cage, so he couldn't get his fingers into his eyes. And I went there and I was just like watching him pace around, and like Dr. Rohn had, I think, been out. Like he felt like he wanted someone with more mental health experience to look at mom. I went out there and I just saw this kid like wandering around the like kitchen island, and let's pretend he was looking for wheat thins. That's not what he was looking for, but it was like he was on the spectrum. It's like one very specific item, right? And if he didn't get his wheat thins, then he would start trying to gouge out his eyes, and he'd have like scratches and all of that stuff. And like sometimes it's small things that you wouldn't think about. So like sometimes you think just opposite, right? Like what's the opposite of lying? Telling the truth. Okay, let me try to do that. And like he was boredom. Like I was watching him and he's just pacing around the island. And I asked mom, I'm like, does he have toys that he plays with? Does he have a TV show that he likes to watch? Does he ever play with his sister? Because she was like a year or two younger or older, but like they were close in age. And she was like, no, he just wants to watch the same 30 seconds of this YouTube clip, Blue's Clues or whatever, right? Like, and that's kind of like all he has unless I set him up and I'm doing something for him. So yeah, this kid had just a lack of leisure skills, and he was engaging in eye gouging from not having appropriate leisure skill behaviors. And also, mom had untreated, like, pretty serious depression that she needed to go get treated, or she couldn't run programs. But anyway, to resolve something as serious as eye gouging, where he was sent to a clinic for a full analog assessment, and that whole kind of thing. And he was, it was a placement stabilization program, so he wasn't going to be able to stay in his house any longer if I didn't get this to resolve. This was the last chance. It's the same with the kid before that too, right? Like, this is their last chance to stay home with their family before they go into formal services and like a group home kind of thing. So you want to really try to keep them at home if you can. And all I did was, like, I took a toy car because there was one there, and I did 15-second intervals because he didn't have a lot of tolerance for it, but I would just have mom, like, push the car back and forth with him for a 15-second interval and give him an edible reinforcer. And I just built it up from there, and within like a month, like, it might have been less than that, it was fast. He was playing, like, pushing cars back and forth with his sister, like, joint attention. They were doing it together. It was so cool. He started finding ways to entertain himself and realize, like, oh, when I'm bored, I can go, like, find another person. It was almost like a cusp skill of, like, I can entertain myself with other people at all. And the only option for my entertainment is not wheat thins, right? Which is, suffice to say, like, sometimes you have to take a step back, and stuff that looks really severe, you're thinking, like, what's causing it also must be really severe if the behavior is really severe, right? So, like, let's say it's in medicine, right? And I have, like, an infection. And, like, if you see my infections, like, oozing and gross and pessy, you would expect in my blood work it to be a severe infection. Like, there's a lot of infection, right? So, like, the cause and the amount of sick you are, like, are balanced, right? Like, with behavior, it's not necessarily that way. So it can be different stuff. So, like, eye gouging is one of the most severe behaviors we see. It can cause, like, permanent damage, blindness, all kinds of things like that. It's really scary. This kid had a mask on all the time he was awake. He'd been seen by a bunch of other providers, and they were looking at, like, the usual suspects, the unusual suspects. But I looked back and I was like, I'm not even thinking about eye gouging. I just want to, like, see this kid's life. Like, let's, like, be really holistic, talk to mom, because I have that mental health counseling background. So I was like, what's going on in a wider context, and how's, like, the family feeling? Because if mom's not healthy and not in a good place, how on earth is she going to help her two kids? And they're both very young. The little boy that was gouging his eyes out was, like, 5 or 6, and his sister, I think, was, like, 4 or 5. Like, little kids. It was rough. So yeah, that turned out to be just, he was bored and didn't know how to occupy his time, and for some reason it got shaped up. And I've seen this before, like, I've seen the shaping process, so I don't know if this is what happened with this one kid, but if I had to guess, I'd say it's something that looks like this. Is that you know, he might have been bored and started itching his eye, and his mom runs over and, like, oh no, don't do that, ba 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 ba. So he gets attention. He's like, this is a way to do something, right? And then he might do it again and, like, scratch his eye and then, like, freak out more. Oh, that's really dangerous. And now you have to go wait for 5 minutes and time out, and I'll come back. But this could be an activity, right? Like, being sent to timeout, like, it's a thing to do, and then another thing's going to happen. So sometimes a really big, really severe behavior can be from a very small antecedent or a very small skill deficit, right? Like, I just don't know how to keep myself occupied. Or since it's happy hour, that's, like, all of alcoholism, right? Or not a lot, but it's, like, your main escape behavior. But a lot of substance use disorders also not knowing how to occupy your leisure time. So it's just to pass time faster or alleviate boredom, which is not what I'm doing right now. Although I could, like, but I think we've all done that. So that's what I had for today, was about lying. I didn't mean to talk about alleviating boredom and leisure skills, but I'm glad I did. We're 10 minutes short, but I feel like that's okay. This is pretty loose. I hope you liked it. If there's something you want to see next time, leave a comment of what you want me to talk about it. If there's a better time of day, let me know that. If I can make it work, I'll try. And today is the last day for 25% off on my site with any CEU you want, drshabier.com. It's pinned at the bottom, or theradisright.com, just radisright.com. And on First Work. And there's a special link for the First Work app where you'll get a 25% discount as a member of BCBA Resources. So both of those promotions end tonight. Make sure you take advantage of them. All my CEUs are, most of them are $20. One's $30 because it's 1.5 ethics and comes with a bunch of templates and like a discussion group, but they're all pretty reasonably priced, and with 25% off, it's not bad. So that is all. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. This was fun, and yeah, let me know what you think. Bye.